Hi, welcome to Board Game Life, Episode 1. This week's game is going to be Forbidden Island. I picked this up at my local comic book store. Looked kind of interesting. The guy at the counter told me a little bit about it. He said that it's 2 or more players and you actually play the game, so you're working together to play the game. So let's open up this bad boy and see what's inside. All right, I'm going to talk over this here because we had some problems with the audio. Just opening up the game, looking at some online registrations for it and the directions, and those are some other promotional products there. And of course I know what these things are supposed to do now, but I didn't know at the time. But there's your water marker, which I'll explain later, and your tiles and your guys and another key marker there. Again, we're just looking at what's inside. Those are your treasure pieces. I'll talk about that. And there's your deck of cards, and that's pretty much what's inside the box. All right, I'm going to do my best to kind of explain how the game is played. If I mess up or if I don't represent the game correctly, I always suggest you read the rules for yourself. So where to start? Well, I guess a good place to start is just how the game is set up. These represent the island itself. And the objective of the game is that, basically your player is on the island, and what you want to do is you want to collect these treasures. These are what represent your treasures, and I'll talk about how to collect the treasures in a minute, and get off the island, which means you and whoever is playing has to move your pieces over to this little thing that looks like a helicopter after you have collected all the treasure pieces, and then that's how you effectively get off the island, or that's effectively how you win the game. Okay, so how the game is played? Well, as you can see, there are 3 different kinds of cards. There's your flood cards, your treasure cards, and then there's also this represents who you are, your card. If you draw the red card, then you're the red guy. If you draw the green card, then you're the green guy, and that's kind of selected randomly. But the first thing you want to do is you want to also notice that each one of these tiles, I should say, have 2 sides to it. They have the color side, and then they have the blue and white side. It looks blue and white, maybe it's black and white. It looks blue to me, but anyway. That represents that that part of the island's in danger. Now, how do you tell which cards to flip over? Well, at the very beginning of the game, you lay them all out on the color side up. And then what you do is you take these flood cards and you flip over 6 flood cards. 6. Okay, so this tells you how many of the islands you need to start with that are underwater. Okay, so let's just go through each one of these. So let's see, first one is Twilight Hollow, so you're going to turn that over, and then you just put that in a discard pile, and that'll get shuffled back into the game. And then the Bronze Gate, there's the Bronze Gate, you turn that one over. Okay, and then the Cave of Shadows. So Cave of Shadows, Cave of Empire, Cave of Shadows. Where am I looking? Cave of Shadows is right there. Okay, and the Temple of the Moon. Temple of the Moon is right there. And then the Iron Gate. Where is Iron Gate? Iron Gate, Iron Gate, Iron Gate, Iron Gate's right there. So that one's turned over. Boom. Okay, and then the Golden Gate, and that one's turned over right there. So you can already see that some of these places are in jeopardy of sinking. And again, I'll explain that a little bit in more detail later. But if it totally sinks by pulling the same card twice, so in other words, if we're playing and I turn that Golden Gate over twice, and it's already blue, or I've turned it over once and it's blue, then I turn it over again, then it's gone. That can no longer be played. That becomes relevant in a moment. But let's just start with that. But you can see that parts of the island are already in jeopardy, okay? So the next thing you want to do is you want to kind of choose your player, and you choose your player at random. You just kind of, okay, and then you give it to the other card or the other person or whatever. And then so I'll just choose green. I'm the explorer. And so you choose the green icon, and somewhere on here it will show you, there'll be where you place your little guy. Okay, so as you can see that this has the green icon on it, and so what I'm going to do is I am going to place my green icon on that. You also have specialty moves as well, which I'll get into momentarily, but I want to talk about one more thing that happens before I start talking about how the actual game is played. Okay, so this is your water level mark, and there are certain cards that you can draw which will raise the water level. And of course, if you get to 5, if you get to number 5, this red skull and crossbones, you lose the game. That means the whole island sinks. So you want to collect the treasure pieces, get to Fool's Landing, get off Fool's Landing before two things happen. Either the square you're on sinks, and then you're done for. If the square you're on sinks, that's it, you're done for. Or if the whole island sinks. Right now we're going to start at novice, which is 2, so that's 2. And we'll talk a little bit about why that's important here in just a second. The next thing I want to talk about is how you collect these treasures. You collect these treasures because in each turn you get to turn over 2 cards. And so see that's a fire card, and so you get to collect this if you have 4 of them. So you have to have 4 in a row. So there's 1, 2, there's not that one, there's 3, and then there's 4, okay? So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if you get 4 fire cards, then you get the treasure, and then now that's off the board, and that's 1 treasure less than you get to get. Okay, the other thing that happens too is you can also see that on these cards, on these little tiles, you have this little thing that represents the fire. And again, if that square sinks because you've turned the flood card over 2 times, and at 2 random times, let's say you, for example, if you where is that darn thing? Okay, so there's the Caves of Doom. Let's say you're playing the game and the Caves of Doom come up, and I'll show you in which order you do this, but let's say, boom, that happens. Okay, that sinks. And let's say you're playing it again and you pull it again. Well, then it's off the board for good. And there's another one here. Let's say the same thing happens to that. That's off the board for good. Well, you lose. You guys lose. And you're actually playing together. You and your teammates aren't playing against each other. You're playing together. So you want to make sure that these parts of the island don't sink. And how do you do that? Well, how do you do that? Well, this one was turned over. So let's talk a little bit about how that's done. So these, you kind of shuffle them in random, and then you can shuffle them back into the bottom of the pile. There's actually a card that says to shuffle them. So every time it's your turn, you get to take up to 3 actions, okay? So 3 actions. You get 3 things you get to do. And it's 3 out of 4. Okay? So let's just pretend I have somebody else here with me. They're playing as well. And let's say they're on iron, let's say they're black, and see there's the black ones on Iron Gate right there. So let's say the person selected black right there, and then I put that person on Iron Gate. Okay, now I'm the green guy, I'm the explorer. Let's just say it's my move. Okay, there are 3 things you can do And the first thing you can do is you can actually just move your card or move your guy. And remember, that's important because you want to get to Fool's Landing so you can get off the island. So I might just move 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Okay, there I'm safe. Wonderful. I'm at Fool's Landing. Now that might not be the best strategy, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So that's one thing you can do, but I've just used all 3 of my actions in one. The other thing you can do is you can turn one of these blue cards over to a full color card. And then the other thing you can do is you can give one of the treasure cards away to somebody else. Well, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to give a treasure card away? Well, because remember, in order to collect the treasure, the same person has to have all 4 of the cards. So if I have 3 cards, and then this person that I'm playing with, this imaginary person I'm playing with, has one of these cards, one of his moves might want to be to give the card to me, and then therefore we can collect the treasure, because you can't collect the treasure without having all 4 cards, basically. That's kind of the idea of it, is you have to have all 4 cards. But, there's a big but, and the only way that you can give a card to somebody is if you're on the same square, okay? So it might not be advantageous for me just to go 1, 2, 3, oh, I'm on Fool's Landing. Because then what if I have one of these cards and I need to give it to him? Okay, or he has one of these cards and he needs to give it to me. So you might want to move closer together. After your turn, so your turn is comprised of 3 actions. So let's just say I want to do 3 actions here for my turn. And let's just say I want to turn over one of these blue cards. That's called shoring up, okay? And I want to move closer to this Iron Gate, to the guy who's on Iron Gate. So I shore this up and I move 2 squares closer to him. I've taken all 3 actions. After you've taken all 3 actions that you're allowed to do, what you do, I gotta shuffle these up, is I take two of my adventure cards now, or my island cards. Now this gets us into something else because I just messed this up. So I shored up an island and I did that. Now the next thing that happens before your turn is over is you have to turn over 2 of the sinking. And the reason you turn over 2 is due to the fact that this is set on 2. You start on 2. So as that rises, you have to turn more of these over. So my turn is over, so I have to turn 2 over, right? So those are the 2 cards, the Observatory and the Cave of Embers. And so now I have to turn over the Cave of Embers to the blue side, and the Observatory, which is Iron Gate, Breathtaking Coals. Let's see, the Observatory right there. So I got to turn that over, okay? Now again, if that card comes up again, if it comes up twice, that's out. And if it's one that I'm on or one that he's on, then he's out. So you don't want that to happen. Now, here's the other wrinkle in the game. Now I get to keep these 2, or sorry, not these 2. Those 2 go over into the discard pile, and as soon as the discards pile is full, you shuffle them and put them back in. Now, unfortunately, I picked a waterized card, so I have to. So see how it gives you the instructions on here. So the waterized card is I have to move this up 1 tick, boom, okay? And then I have to shuffle the flood cards in the disc pile cards back into here. So you got to shuffle them up. Boom. Boom. You have to shuffle those bad boys up. And then you have to discard 3. You have to choose 3 cards. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3, right? So I've chosen 3. So now the Caves of Embers. So I chose the Caves of Embers. So now Caves of Embers is no longer in play because it was already blue and I've already chosen it. Okay, now Whispering Garden. Let's see, Whispering Garden. Whispering Garden, that's got to turn over. Boom. And then the Coral Place, or Palace, sorry, Coral Palace. Coral Palace, Coral Palace. Where's Coral Palace? Let's see. Oh, there it is, Coral Palace. So that, now that one's blue. Now the reason why you don't want these to sync is because, well, your treasure might be on it, and if both of those treasures sync, the game's over. If both of those cards get discarded, if both of those tiles get discarded, then you can't pick that up and you lose the game. But the other reason is as you're moving, you can only move on that. So, you know, if let's say I was here and this card was gone, I'd have to move here and here to get to the landing place. Okay, so that's not good. All right, so you don't want that to happen. So then let's say the next person goes, but they're specialty moves. So my specialty move, because I'm green, is I can shore up and I can move or shore up diagonally. I don't know what that means. Okay, so I can move diagonally. I can move or shore up diagonally. Okay, so normally you have to move adjacent. That's, I think that's the rules of the game. But I can move, so I could go here, here, and here. Okay, but I'm already one step ahead, or I'm already right there. So let's say it's this person's turn. So he has 3 moves that he wants to make. Now, I've already got one of the Water Rise cards, and I've already got one of these cards. And remember, we're going to collect all 4 of them, because if you collect all 4 of them, then you get it. Then you get to get the treasure, and then you're one step closer. Well, obviously, you know, he's on this one, so you can shore one up. So you might want to shore one up, and then you might want to move twice closer to there, and then I'm playing for him, and then you get to choose 2 cards. And what 2 cards does he choose? Well, he chooses 2 of the treasure cards. He chose one of these and one of these, so we're already on our way in collecting that. And see, you're working together to get off the island. And then you have to turn over 2, because the water level's still at 2. This water level mark's still at 2. So now at the end, so he's done his 3 moves, or 3 actions, and he has to draw 2 of these, and that will increase. So the 2 he draws is the observatory. So now look, the observatory's gone, which is okay, because it's not in our way to get to the helicopter, and it doesn't have an emblem on it that would be important, and he's not on it. So the observatory's gone, and then the watchtower. And so the watchtower is, where is the watchtower? Watchtower. Oh, watchtower is now turned over to blue. Okay, so basically that's how it's played. Now, one of the actions you can take that I did mention, but I didn't quite go through explicitly, is you can give your card to somebody. Remember, you want to give your card to somebody so they can get the treasure, but you have to be on the same square. Okay, so for sake of the game, what you want to do is you want to have all 4 of these for each one of these. This one, this one, this one, and this one. And then you want to get off the island, and you also have to have, I'll show you one last thing. You also have to have that card to get off the island. So all your players have to get off the but between the 4 of you, or how many ever there are, you have to collect all the treasures. You can't be on a square. If it sinks, if it's discarded, you're gone. You have to all be on the Fool's Island, or Fool's Landing, sorry, and then you have to have this card, and then you can get off the island, and you've won the game. But again, and not to repeat myself, but again, you lose the game if you are on a square that gets discarded. If you're on that square and it gets discarded, you're toast, you're done, okay? If the water level mark moves up to here, you're done, you're toast. And remember, the amount of cards you turn over depends on how high the water mark. So if we were here, we would be turning over 5 of these sinking cards, which isn't good. And then the other way to lose is if both tiles that have one of the treasure emblems on it, if they sink. And if they sink, or if they're done for, if they get discarded or whatever, then you can't pick that treasure up, and therefore you lose the game. And that's how the game's played. Now, let's play a couple rounds. All right, so now the review of the game, Forbidden Island. What do I think about it now that I've played it? Well, I have a couple of thoughts on the game. First thought that I have is that it was pretty complex to really understand the objective of the game and the rules of the game, which made it a little frustrating for about the first half of the first game. And the first half of the first game took longer just because we were trying to understand what the rules were and how the game actually worked. And so that made it a little frustrating. But then about halfway through the first game, it really became quite enjoyable. I had a good time. The second thing you need to know is that the games are quick, because it was only like about an hour that we had time to play it. It wasn't a whole game night because my friend had to leave. But in about an hour and 10 minutes, we played the whole game 2 times. Now, of course, if you have more than 2 players, it'll probably extend the length of the game. But again, I would recommend that you have more than one game if you're going to use that as part of the game night and not the entirety of the game night itself. Just again, because the game just went so quickly after we understood the rules. It was just pretty quick to play. All right, and other than that, really not much. I do recommend the game. I suggest that you get it and find out for yourself if you like it. And if you have any games that you would like to see me play, any board or table games, please leave them your suggestions in the comments below. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share this. Do me a favor and share this on your favorite social media or multiple media platforms, and I would really appreciate that. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time for the next edition of Board Game Life.